Colton was a very happy baby. He spared no feelings on how he felt about certain people, and we all felt like he was a good judge of character based on how he treated you. Um, a lot of times he was definitely a smiler. He would smile at you. If you smiled at him, he would smile back at you. And if you opened your arms, he would give you a hug. He was definitely a hugger too. Just the way he was. Prior to Colton's passing, I got out of the military in 2018, early 2018. It was April. Yeah, it was the end of April 2018, and me and Colton's mom decided that we were going to move to Tennessee and live with her family for a little while in limbo while I looked for a job nearby on the East Coast, wherever it happened to be, just because I wanted to stay in the field that I was in as a contractor in the military. And so that's what led us to Virginia. So I think it was June, July-ish of 2018, we moved to Charlottesville, Virginia. Between that time, 2018, into about May, no, that was, yeah, about a year later, April of 2019, me and Colton's mom had separated, and we're going to be filing for divorce. So, 2020, me and Colton's mom had officially gotten divorced. Well, before that time, at the beginning of the year, I had met with Jasmine, and we had been together since then. And it wasn't too long after that divorce, September, the beginning of September, that me and Jasmine got married. And between me and Jasmine, we had 3 kids at the time. I had Brachus and Colton, and she had Emma. So it all came down to September 26th. At the time, the court orders were that I was supposed to have the boys every other weekend. And that weekend was not supposed to be my weekend, but my ex had reached out and said, hey, we have some plans. Would you like to have the boys for the weekend? I said, yes, absolutely. I'm not going to, of course I want to spend time with my kids, That's, obviously I want to spend time with my kids. And it was kind of particular that night was kind of particular because Jasmine had her plans. Her daughter was out with her grandma, and so it was a field night. We all had our own things going on, and it was a boys' night out for us. It was me and the 2 boys. We played video games, made some. I don't know. I don't think we made any food, but we were playing video games mostly, and the boys chasing each other around, just doing little boy stuff. We went outside and did some stuff with Halloween decorations. I have a picture of that. That's the last picture I have of Colton before everything happened. So, dinner that night, I wanted to be cheap and quick, and I made all 3 of us boys, hot dogs. And the 2 little boys, they don't like buns with their hot dogs. They just like hot dogs with ketchup. If you have little kids, you understand. They don't do buns. It's just ketchup with their hot dogs. So I had Brachus's hot dog cut the way he likes, and with Colton, of course, I cut his up in mini slices. So it didn't happen too long after that, where I was making my own plate, and next thing I know, I hear coughing, I hear some gagging and what sounded like throwing up. I turned around, I saw that Colton had a mouthful of food. Well, he didn't have a mouthful of food, but he had thrown up on his plate, and you know, I made a smart aleck response of, well, don't be eating too much now, son. And I didn't look away immediately. I just looked at him, and he was starting to struggle breathing. I didn't scream. I didn't make any unnecessary sounds or anything like that. All I could do was jump into action, grab him, and start doing the Heimlich maneuver, because that's just all I knew in my head at the time. And it didn't work. I called 911. They stayed on the phone with me until an ambulance got there. There really wasn't much else going on that could be done, but they got Colton in the ambulance and they took him to the nearest hospital. So a good friend of mine named Scott took my oldest son. Left. I stayed. The sheriff department showed up, of course, because we're outside of city limits. And yeah, sheriff showed up and asked, or was saying that I can go along with I could go along with them if I wanted to, but I figured there's probably to be questions asked and the whole 9 yards. So I was like, no, he's going to the hospital. It'll be okay. I stayed. The sheriff asked if he can go aside, take pictures, this and that, do the investigative stuff they have to do. That part only took maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and then I took off. I called my folks. I know I called my dad and mom first, and told them what was going on, told them it didn't look good. And so I left and I showed up to the hospital. They brought me to the back room where they showed me Colton laying there. They had him hooked up and everything, and they had told me that at that point they were having Air Care come and pick him up to take him to the University of Virginia Hospital, because there was just, as far as what they had at that little hospital, they didn't have the means to take care of him because he needed to be in a NICU, PICU. So that's what I told her what was going on. I said, that they're waiting for Air Care right now to come pick him up, and that he was being airlifted to UVA. She was on the way, but I told her no, just go straight to UVA. She lives closer to UVA than I do. So instead of her coming all the way over to the hospital where I was at, I just told her straight to go to there, and she could meet up with them when she got there. And once Air Care came and picked him up, I didn't get to ride with them, but that's okay. They picked him up. I loaded up with just me and Jasmine showed up. Jasmine showed up. She got a ride back from being with her friends. If I didn't state that, she was gone for the night being with friends, going to a drive-in concert, because this is COVID times, so can't go to live concerts, you gotta go to a drive-in concert. But anyways, me and her went, and we drove all the way to UVA from where we live. That's an hour and a half away. I think we still managed to beat think we still managed to beat Eric. Next 2 days, I can't recall too much of what actually happened, except just the fact that I was in that room with Colton the entire time. Jasmine had a hard time trying to get me to leave. I refused to leave for any reason whatsoever. They told us that he was pretty much brain dead, but there were tests they were going to conduct to verify that he was brain dead. And then there was a person, there's a lady from an organization called LifeNet who asked us if it came down to it, could Colton be an organ donor? Because unfortunately, it looked more likely that was going to happen. Unfortunately, nobody wanted to be that bearer of bad news, but that was the reality. And we said yes. Me and Colton's mom agreed to have him be an organ donor if it came down to it. And on the 28th of September, they did their last test to see if there was any sort of brain activity, and there wasn't. They declared hospital organized what they call an honor walk, which is where all the nurses and staff on that floor line up. It could have been other nurses and other staff from other floors, but they all lined up on that floor, and they, all of us family that was there, we got to follow the nurse as they were pushing Colton around to the elevator, and then it's quite the sight to see, to be honest. It really is quite the sight to see. Once we got to the elevator, I could only go by myself. Colton's mom did not show up for whichever reason. I don't know. I didn't ask. I don't need to ask. And so I wasn't allowed to even bring Brachus down with me. And so I got the ride of the elevator downstairs all by myself down to the OR room where they were going to do the organ harvesting. And that was where I had to actually say my final goodbyes to his body. And I actually got it all on video. One of the nurses took my phone. After that was done, me and his mom, my ex, decided that we were going to have him cremated. Yeah, we were going to split the ashes 50-50. That was probably the second hardest day I'd had in my life when I went to go pick up his ashes. You don't know unless you know. I went there, I went to the funeral home where he was cremated. I had my brother and my best friend with me, and I didn't even make it back to the car. I cried and cried. And my brother, bless his soul, he was waiting for something to happen. He thought I was some sort of ticking time bomb, thinking that I was just some sort of emotionless person, and it just wasn't the case. It just wasn't the case. So, but me and Colton's mom had our own separate celebration of life services, if you will. And I think there for a little while I was emotionless. I was still in that state of shock. Yes, I was full of emotions, but I was also still in a state of shock. Over 3 years since that happened, and I'm gonna tell you that with that sort of event happening, between now and the past 3 years, me and Jasmine have 2 children of our own. And with those kids, with these 2 boys I have now, comes with a lot of PTSD. It comes with a lot of PTSD anytime these boys cough or gag. And we just have to watch them like a hawk. And that is something that's just no joke. I definitely advocate for making sure that your little ones do not eat hot dogs until a particular age. Brachus was 5 years old, and he hadn't had any issues. Not saying he could, not saying he wouldn't, not saying it wasn't possible. But with the 2-year-old, I'm learning my lessons. I took CPR class. That stuff's no joke. That is, I do not wish this kind of PTSD, this kind of guilt on anyone, not even my own enemies. There's so much to the struggle. There's the PTSD, there's the guilt. There's the guilt, the fact that I'm the one that gave him that food. I should have known better, and I didn't. And it cost me. It's that kind of guilt. A lot of people had told me it's not my fault. And I'm to a confident point of knowing that, yes, okay, it's not my fault. These things happen. But there's still that guilt. That's not something that just goes. And the PTSD that comes along with that, when I have my kids, even the older kids, when they're coughing and choking accidentally on something, it's not good. It's not good. I don't wish that on anybody. Take caution when feeding your kids, everyone. You're going to want to take caution when feeding your kids. Them little ones.